It's really impressive what this super small form factor mini gaming PC can do. I mean, we've got Forza Motorsports at 1440p, and it's smaller than an Xbox Series S. Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today I am super excited because today we finally get to take a look at the Thunderobot Mix Mini Gaming PC, and this is one that I've had my eye on for a while now. They announced this a few months back, and they do offer several different hardware configurations, but the one I have here is actually their lowest end model. I purposely chose this one due to the price point, and I was really interested to see how it performs. But I mean, straight out of the box, as you can see, we've got a super small form factor gaming PC, and in fact, it's smaller than the Xbox Series S, and it's actually more powerful. So inside of the box, along with the mini PC, we also get a vertical stand. This thing can sit horizontally on the desk if you want it to, but I think the stand does kind of make it look really awesome. We also have a 230 watt power supply and a USB hub, so we can actually add a few more full-size USB ports to this mini. We've got a lot more to go over, but before we get into it, I do want to mention that this video is brought to you by Urcdkeys. I've actually been using this site for a couple years now. They do offer Steam keys, Origin, Uplay. They even offer Microsoft applications like Office, but the main reason that I use Urcdkeys is for their Windows keys. Right now, their Windows 10 Pro OEM key is $19.84, but if you use code ETA at checkout, you can get 25% off. And another great thing about buying from here is they do accept PayPal. I just did this build here. I need to activate Windows. I'm going to head over to my updates and security. We're going to go to activation. As you can see, I've got Windows 10 Pro, but it's not activated. So I'm going to change product key. I'm going to paste it in here, choose next, choose activate, and Windows is now activated. We're ready to go. My warning is totally gone, and basically that's it. They'll email your code once your payment is processed, and that's basically it. If you're interested in picking up cheap Windows 10 keys for your new PC builds, I'll leave a link in the description. Overall, I really do like the design, and over here on this side, we've got our power button, which does have an LED, so this kind of lights up. We've also got an LED strip on the side, and you might have noticed that the I/O is actually on both ends. So once this is placed in the vertical stand, we've got access to some USBs and a 3.5mm audio jack over on one side. Our power and everything else will be on the other. They did tout this as a console-sized gaming PC, and yeah, I mean, some other manufacturers do say that. They come in a bit larger, but this is actually coming in smaller than the Xbox Series S, and setting the Switch right on top of it, it's really not much bigger than a Switch without the dock. It's also vertically shorter than the Series S, and of course, it's going to be smaller than the PS5 or the Xbox Series X. I didn't even want to compare them because those are massive consoles. In the stand, I do think it looks pretty awesome. Now, at first, I was a little confused on what end was what, but as soon as you get one of these in your hand, you'll notice power's on one side. Obviously, that's going to be the rear. Taking a look at the bottom of the unit, we've got a bunch of ventilation here. This is where all of our air is going to be drawn in, and it's actually pushed out of one side. So if we have this sitting vertically, it's going to be pushed out of the top of the unit. We've got an M.2 slot that's easily accessible, so you can always upgrade that SSD. It is PCIe 4.0, and this came with a 512 gigabyte drive. Now, when it comes to I/O, there's actually not a ton here. I think that's why they kind of include a USB adapter. But, for a little gaming rig, I think there's more than enough. It does have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Usually, my controllers are connected over Bluetooth. But over here on this side, which I'm going to consider the rear of the unit, we've got our power input for that 230 watt power adapter, full-size HDMI 2.1. We've also got a full-size USB 3.2 Gen 2 port and USB Type-C. Unfortunately, it's not USB 4 or Thunderbolt 4, it's USB 3.2 Gen 2, but it does support video out, and it'll do 100 watt power delivery. Over here on this side, we've got a 3.5mm audio jack, full-size USB 3.2 Gen 1 port, and gigabit Ethernet. Not much else going on around each side, but around back here, we do have our ventilation. So if you do have this set vertically, there is a chance it could get a bit hotter because it needs to pull air in from the bottom. So using this included stand is probably the way to go. Now, when it comes to the specs of the Thunderobot Mix, like I mentioned, they do offer a couple different variants. You can pick this up with an i9 and an RTX 4060. They also offer a version with an i9 and an RTX 4070, or you can go with the i7, which is the one we're taking a look at. And when it comes to the overall specs of this, we've got the Intel Core i7 13620H. 10 cores, 16 threads. We've got 6 performance cores up to 4.9 GHz and 4 efficiency cores up to 3.6. We've also got an Nvidia GeForce RTX 4060 laptop variant with 8 GB of GDDR6 VRAM, 16 GB of LPDDR5 RAM running at 5200 megatransfers per second. So unfortunately, you cannot upgrade the RAM. You will have to go with their higher end version to get 32 gigs. It's got a 512 GB PCIe 4.0 M.2 NVMe SSD, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2, and this is running Windows 11 right out of the box. Now, I definitely want to jump right into some gaming to show you what this thing can do. And first up, we've got Forza Motorsports 1440p high. Now, this is some great performance here, and we have had some updates to the Nvidia drivers and the game itself. Definitely seeing a nice jump in performance basically on all platforms that I tested this game with, but I actually wasn't expecting it to run this well. And at 1440p high, it looks gorgeous. Now, if you wanted to go to Ultra, you will have to take this down to 1080 or add some DLSS. And to my eye, adding a little bit of DLSS doesn't hurt it that much. But yeah, I mean, at 1440p, this game is trucking right along. We will be testing out some more PC games, but the first thing I want to do is plug this into my game capture so you can get a better look at the screen. I want to go over a few things here. Okay, so I've been testing this thing out for a little while now, and it is really snappy. It's definitely a 1440p gaming machine in a super small form factor. And with this i7, this is actually a CPU I personally haven't tested yet, but it looks like it's putting out some decent performance. i7-13620H. When it comes to RAM, it's non-user upgradable in this machine. You can go with 16, and I believe they have a 32 gig model, but it is running at 5200 MHz, so it's LPDDR5. And of course, we've got that RTX 4060, and with this form factor, it is the laptop variant. Now, the first thing I always like to take a look at is just TDP on the CPU. I also want to check the TGP on that RTX 4060. Just run a stress test with CPU-Z, and this does jump up to around 60 watts, so we've got that boost up to around 68. Plenty for this little chip, and from the BIOS, you can adjust this if you wanted to. Fans aren't that loud right now with the CPU stressed all the way out. When that GPU kicks in, it does kind of ramp up a little bit, but it doesn't sound like a gaming laptop at full boat. Now, what I'm going to do here is just run this test. We got firmware. Basically, this is going to stress out the RTX 4060, and we've got an 80 watt TGP here. Clocks are looking decent. Now, from Afterburner, we cannot up the wattage on this 4060. I'm sure there's probably a way around this, but you know, everything that I'm testing here is basically stock configuration. And so far, with what I've tested, this is a great performing mini gaming PC. Now, the next thing I wanted to take a look at were some benchmarks that I ran on this thing. And the first one here is Geekbench 6, single core 2492, multi 12204. It's actually putting out much better performance than I thought. Again, I haven't tested this CPU, so I wasn't sure what to really expect here. But now it's time to move over to some GPU benchmarks with 3D Mark. Firestrike coming in with a 21,719, and the final one I ran was TimeSpy with a 9,535. Of course, we've seen higher scores than this with more powerful units, but given the form factor, I think this is an amazing TimeSpy score. But these are synthetic benchmarks, and now it's time to test out some more real-world games. Spiderman Miles Morales. This is one that works great on the RTX 4060 with no DLSS, 1440p, very high settings. You're going to have an awesome time with this, and just taking DLSS to quality will give us an average of around 113 FPS if you need to go up that high. But you know, if you wanted to save some power, you could always just lock this right down at 60 and have an amazing time with it. God of War 1440p high with DLSS set to balance. Now, I do think that we could actually get away with DLSS set to quality at high settings. Initially, I went in at 1440p ultra with DLSS at balanced, and we were right there on the edge. We got an average of 62, but had some dips under 60. So I just took it down to high here. And yeah, now we can actually average around 88 FPS with this game. Moving over to Forza Horizon 5, 1440p, extreme, no resolution scale is needed for a game like this. I mean, we're maxed out here at 1440p, running absolutely amazingly. We got an average of 81 FPS. We also had to test out Cyberpunk 2077. We're at 1440p high with DLSS set to balance, and that kind of seems to be the case with a lot of the higher, harder to run AAA games. Need a little bit of DLSS with the RTX 4060, but at least to me, and a lot of people that I know, if you've got a good monitor or a good display that you're running this on, it's really hard to tell the difference between 1440p native and DLSS balanced. I mean, it does a really good job and helps out tremendously. And finally, I had to test out Starfield, 1440p, medium, DLSS set to performance. So this is one of those games that definitely needs some more optimizations. DLSS performance is something that I can definitely tell the difference. So personally, I would rather run this at 1080p high. Now we're in the city, which is a really hard spot to kind of run. Out in the open or even indoors, you're going to get much more out of it. We got an average of 85 FPS during planet exploration, and indoors it will jump up to 120 and over. This is one of those games that's just kind of all over the place depending on where you are in the world. And since we're working with a small form factor PC, I always like taking a look at total system power consumption from the wall. So while I'm doing my testing, this is plugged into a kilowatt meter. And at idle, this is drawing 16 watts. So remember, I am in performance mode inside of Windows. Average gaming, 143 watts. And the maximum that I could get this to pull in my extreme test was 186. So we've got a 230 watt power supply included. We're not getting close to that limit there. And I mean, it's not bad for the performance this thing's putting out. So overall, I really do like the design here, especially when it's set inside of the stand vertically. I think it looks really great here. Awesome form factor, coming in smaller than that Xbox Series S, which is really impressive. And when it comes to performance, I mean, this is a 1440p gaming machine, no doubt about it. It'd be really cool to install SteamOS 3 on this, but unfortunately, since we're working with an Nvidia GPU, they don't play well together. I mean, at least for the gamepad UI. Now, we could definitely install Linux and run some games and get some awesome performance, but we're not going to get all of those Steam Deck features over here on this mini PC due to the Nvidia GPU. If they made a version of this with a Radeon GPU, it'd be awesome for SteamOS, but you know, the way it is with that Intel CPU, Nvidia GPU, running games in Windows, this is an awesome micro gaming machine. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. Really appreciate you watching. If there's anything else you want to see running on the Thunderobot mix, let me know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning a little more, maybe picking one of these up, I will leave a couple links in the description. You can head over to minixpc.com, get your hands on one of these, or you could go all out with it. i9 4070. I think that would be a great performer. It'd be really cool to test that one. Let me know if you've got any questions. And like always, thanks for watching.